Hello everyone, welcome back to IELTS Adda. Here's your esteemed teacher Nishtha Singh. I hope all of you are doing really great. So first, let's connect everybody. Jaldi se sab log aa jao so that we can start our today's session. As you can see that what is written here, today we are going to do a listening practice test, right? So same again, we have been doing the reading, the writing, and some of speaking as well. So we'll be doing speaking this week also, because I know that we have been, discussing about speaking part, but due to some reasons we are not able to do it. But this week we'll definitely going to do it, right? So first, jaldi se sab log aa jao and do let me know who all are here, okay? So quickly everyone join, and then we'll be starting with our today's session. So सबको पता है लिसनिंग में हम क्या करते हैं, सेट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस रहते हैं, वहाँ पे ऑडियो प्ले होगी, ऑडियो ध्यान से हमें सुनना होता है, एंड देन वी हैव टू आंसर दोज क्वेश्चंस बेस्ड ऑन दैट ऑडियो, राइट? सो ये हमारा क्या रहता है, पूरा प्रोसेस रहता है, ओके? सो आई एम जस्ट वेटिंग फॉर यू गाइज टू ज्वाइन so that you won't miss anything. Okay, so before diving into the session, let's look at the quote of the day, right, that we generally discuss. So today's quote is what? A person who never made a mistake never tried anything new, right? सो ऑब्वियसली अगर आप कुछ नया ट्राई जब तक नहीं करोगे, आप कुछ भी नया करते हो तो ऑब्वियसली आपसे उसमें क्या होती हैं, गलतियां होती है. और जो इंसान कभी कोई गलती नहीं करता, इसका मतलब ये है कि उसने कभी कुछ नया ट्राई ही नहीं किया है ना. तभी होता है, क्योंकि नोबडी इज़ परफेक्ट, राइट? वी ऑल हैव बीन गॉन थ्रू सम मिस्टेक्स एंड रीडूज एंड द प्रोसेसेस अगेन एंड अगेन, तभी तो हम उसमें परफेक्शन लेके आ पाते हैं. जब स्टार्टिंग में व्हेन यू गाइज वर न्यू टू दिस, सो यू रिमेंबर कि हाँ, स्टार्टिंग में हमें ना तो हमें राइटिंग इतने अच्छे से हमें आ पाती थी, हम जब कर रहे थे वी वर नॉट अवेयर विद द लेक्सिकल रिसोर्सेज और सारी चीज़ें, और लिसनिंग में भी सबके साथ यही था, रिमेंबर. बट ओवर द टाइम व्हेन यू हैव मेड दोज मिस्टेक्स, और उससे सीखने के बाद में यू गाइज आर व्हाट, यू गाइज हैव बीन आई कैन से दैट यू हैव इम्प्रूव्ड अ लॉट. So that's really great. Hi DJ, I am doing better now. Thank you for asking. So welcome back. You have been not have been here from a long time. So I'm just guessing that your exam scores have been out by now. Is it? So do let me know that how much band did you score, right? Okay, so let's move on. Right? Okay. So this is the part 1 and questions. Okay, so before moving forward, I'm just going to first play an audio for you guys. Okay. Oh, that's great. So how much did you get? Okay, you can, if you're not comfortable here, you can also tell me in the mail. And if you are comfortable here, you can tell me here as well. Okay, so that's all up to you. So yes, I was just telling you guys that I'm going to, hi Gagan, I'm going to play an audio here, same ways, both ways. So you have to tell me that which one is clearer, okay? Because I am not, able to listen like you guys are listening. So please, because मुझे पता है क्या इश्यूज होते हैं ऑडियो में, बहुत सारी बार दिक्कत आती है, एंड यू ऑल हैव बीन देयर. मुझे बहुत सारे कंप्लेंट्स आते हैं, मैम क्लियर नहीं ऑडियो, मैम ये इशू हो रहा है, मैम वो इशू हो रहा है. सो आई हैव एडेड द ऑडियो. मैं एक बार डेस्कटॉप पे प्ले करके दिखा देती हूँ, एक बार मैं फ़ोन से प्ले करके दिखा देती हूँ, जिसमें यू गाइज थिंक इट इज़ मोर क्लियर, इट इज़ मोर ऑडिबल, मुझे बताना, ठीक है? सो फर्स्ट आई एम गोइंग टू प्ले इन माई फोन. मुझे बताओ इज इट क्लियर और नॉट, एंड देन आई एम गोइंग टू प्ले ऑन द स्क्रीन एज वेल. ओके, चलो. सो पेस योर सेल्फ, आराम से बैठ जाओ. हाय हेलो हो गया सबका, आई नो. तो अब थोड़ा सा ध्यान लगाएं एंड देन विल मूव टू द लिसनिंग पार्ट, ठीक है? थोड़ा अभी टेस्ट कर रहे हैं, दिस इज द टेस्टिंग पार्ट ऑफ लिसनिंग, ओके? सो दैट हमें पता लग जाए कि ऑडियो क्लियर है या नहीं. सो प्लीज लिसन केयरफुली.
Part 1. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. The one that has an interesting history from which I think we can learn a fundamental lesson about problem solving.
Okay. सुना? कैसी साउंड थी? वॉज इट ऑडिबल? वॉज इट क्लियर? वॉज इट नॉट क्लियर? थोड़ा सा स्टटर हो रहा था साउंड में. कैसी साउंड थी? हाउ वॉज इट ओवरऑल? जल्दी से मुझे बता दो सो दैट आई कैन मूव टू द नेक्स्ट वन कि क्या है क्या नहीं है. क्लियर थी ये वाली साउंड? येस और नो? Okay. Sonia is saying okay. Gagan is saying audible. Yes, this time it was good, clear, but fast. Fast is going to be because that is a little bit advanced level. So we have to listen carefully. I cannot do it slow because it is the pace of the audio, right? It is not in my hand. So that's how it is in the exam only. So वही वाला है, अलग से कुछ नहीं है. ये मत सोचो कि हम 2x में जा रहे हैं. Why? No, you cannot do it slow. Then how it would be like exam pattern तो बेटा same है ना. So don't make it slow. You have to go with the same pace. अगर आप slow करोगे तो again it is the same thing. You can listen to it slowly though later on. अभी test attempt करो with the same pace and then if you think कि उसके बाद में हाँ ये नेचुरल पेस है, ठीक है, अभी हमें नेचुरल वाले पे ही टेस्ट अटेम्प्ट करना है. बट इफ़ यू थिंक दैट यू वांट टू रीडू इट बाय योरसेल्फ, दोबारा से आराम से घर जाके 0.5x पे सुनना, समझना, ठीक है. ओके, सो यस, सोनिया वाज टेलिंग मी इट वाज ओके. सो मैं एक बार और ऑडियो प्ले कर रही हूँ ऑन द डेस्कटॉप. एक बार मुझे ये वाला ऑडियो बताओ, इज इट क्लियर और नॉट? ठीक है.
Part 1. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5.
In today's lecture, I want to look at one of Australia's least loved animals, but one that has an interesting history from which I think we can learn a fundamental lesson about problem solving. While Australia is famous for its many wonderful native animals, in particular the kangaroo and the koala, it also has some less attractive animals, many of which...
बताओ, how was it, this one? Was it fast? Was it like okay? Was it good? Better than the previous one? कैसा था this audio? There is a difference. एक one I'm playing at the phone, another one at the desktop. So दोनों में थोड़ा सा difference है at the sound. So please मुझे बताओ कि दोनों में like which one do you find or prefer more? ये वाला ज़्यादा बेटर था या इससे पहले वाला? It is also clear. Monica is saying Sonia, DJ, it is good, better ना? पहले वाले से this one was better? Yes or no? Best. Good, better, best. अरे तीनों नहीं बताने. Sonia, you also tell बेटा. DJ, input दो at least मुझे. Like was it better than the previous one? पिछले वाले से ये ज़्यादा better था? Better than previous ना, ठीक है. That is okay for me. So one more thing, I won't be pausing the audio now, ठीक है, because ये यहाँ पे चल रहा है तो बस मैं स्क्रीन पे questions I'll be moving on, ठीक है. So don't expect me to pause the audio, ठीक है, क्योंकि मैं नहीं करूँगी तो accordingly we'll move forward. I know थोड़ा सा faster pace है audio का, but you guys are expert now. इतने दिनों से you have like taken like 2 or 3 tests as well, है ना? 2-3 तो हम कर ही चुके हैं. ये okay था, DJ was saying, हाँ, you have better experience, so I know, but it's okay. So yes, what I'm saying that go through with it. Questions अगर miss हो रहे हैं, then it's okay. Try to listen first. Active listening करनी है और questions read करने के लिए जो time मिलेगा उसी time में question read करना है अच्छे से, and then accordingly we'll move forward to the next part, ठीक है. एंड इफ़ आई फील कि क्वेश्चन यहाँ पे इनकम्प्लीट है बट द ऑडियो इज गोइंग फास्ट, आई विल पॉज. ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं क्वेश्चन आया नहीं है, ऑडियो चले जा रही है एंड देन यू गाइज विल बी लाइक मैम क्वेश्चन तो था नहीं. सो डोंट वरी अबाउट इट एज वेल, ठीक है. सो दिस इज योर पार्ट 1, राइट. रीड टू द क्वेश्चंस. योर कनेक्शन इज पॉजिंग, इट्स ओके. You can listen to it later on as well, Gagan. ठीक है. So first go through with the question. Part 1, question number 1, 2, 3 आराम से read कर लो एक बार and then I am going to play the audio. ठीक है.
Part 1.
First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5.
In today's lecture, I want to look at one of Australia's least loved animals, but one that has an interesting history from which I think we can learn a fundamental lesson about problem solving. While Australia is famous for its many wonderful native animals, in particular the kangaroo and the koala, it also has some less attractive animals, many of which were actually brought to Australia in the 19th and 20th centuries. First, perhaps the most well-known introduced animal is the rabbit, brought originally by the early settlers as a source of food. Another animal to be introduced by the settlers was the fox, and this was for the purpose of sport in the form of fox hunting. But perhaps the most unusual animal ever brought here was the cane toad. Here is a picture of one. It's a large, and some people would say very ugly species of toad, and was deliberately imported to this country by the sugarcane farmers in 1935 in an attempt to eradicate the beetle which destroys the sugarcane plant. So, how does the beetle do this? Well, it lives in the cane and drops its eggs onto the ground around the base of the plant. The eggs develop into grubs, and then they eat the cane roots. This, as you would expect, is far from good for the plant, and the result is, of course, that within a short period of time, the plant dies. The problems all happened because in the mid-30s, there was a serious outbreak of cane beetle, and the farmers became desperate to get rid of the pest which was ruining their livelihood.
Okay, यहाँ तक आया समझ में?
About this time,
Just give me a second. Clear थी? चलो ठीक है, आंसर्स भी आ रहे हैं. Monica is answering, Gagan is answering. Sonia and DJ, that's up to you if you want to answer right now or you just want to answer at the end of the session. Okay, that depends on you. So I'm playing. Okay.
news was trickling in from overseas about a toad, which supposedly ate the beetles which killed the cane. It was reported that this cane toad, which was native to Central America, had been taken to Hawaii, where cane is also grown, and introduced with apparent success. So, with the backing of the Queensland authorities, the farmers arranged to import 100 toads from Hawaii. The toads were then released into the cane fields to undertake the eradication of the cane beetle. As predicted, the toads started to breed successfully, and within a very short time their numbers had swollen. But there was one serious problem. It turned out that cane toads do not eat cane beetles. And the reason for this is that toads live on insects that are found on the ground, and the cane beetles live at the top of the cane plant, well out of reach of the toads. In fact, they never come into contact with each other. Now, you may well ask, how did this terrible mistake ever happen? And the reason is quite simply that the farmers were desperate to find a way of ridding their fields of the cane beetle, and so they accepted the reports that had been written, without ever doing their own research. Meanwhile, much of tropical northeast Australia is infested with the cane toad, which serves no purpose whatsoever, and experts claim that the toad is spreading south in plague proportions. The added irony is that in 1947, just 12 years later, an effective pesticide was developed which actually kills the beetle, thereby ensuring the survival of the sugarcane industry to this day. Now, as agricultural scientists, we have to ask ourselves, what lessons are to be learned from this tale? And I can think of three main points. Firstly, one should never rely on claims which are not backed up by evidence, i.e., in this case, evidence that the cane toad actually eats the grub of the cane beetle and thereby kills the pest. Secondly, we should look very carefully at possible effects of introducing any living species into a new environment. And lastly, one should not allow one's decision-making to be influenced by a sense of desperation, which may cloud the issue. In other words, one should always seek objective advice.
That is the end of part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Okay, so part 1 is done. जिन्होंने मुझे आंसर मोनिका is saying कि video lags at some point, I need to listen to those parts again. Sonia is saying yes. Yes, Sonia, for what beta? आपको भी want to listen to it again. अगर दोबारा से सुनना है, do let me know, I'll play it again. ठीक है? Because I don't want you guys to lag anywhere. ऐसा नहीं है कि lag करना है. ठीक है? Monica is telling me she'll answer later on. It's okay. That's up to you, beta. If you are feeling कि पूरे 40 questions के बाद, but write down your answers on a paper. ठीक है? So that you won't forget कि क्या answer किया है. Sonia is saying yes. Do you want me to go again with the part 1, question number 1 to 10? फिर से सुनना है. If you want to listen to it once more, do let me know, because it is अभी 5:15 ही हुआ है. So we still have like 30 questions left. So we have a plenty of time. Right? Because today we won't be discussing the answers. The answers हम कल discuss कर लेंगे. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. But I'll be telling you the marks as well. कि कितने हैं. ठीक है ना? So you guys want me to play it again, the first part? Okay, sure. No worries. I'm going to play it once more. This is your question. Be ready for the audio. ठीक है? इस बार थोड़ा ध्यान से सुनना. Please be attentive. Okay? I know this audio is a little bit faster pace. At a faster pace. So please be attentive. Active listening करनी है हमें थोड़ी. ठीक है? चलो, I'm going to play it once more. Just give me a second.
Question. It's 1 to 5.
In today's lecture, I want to look at one of Australia's least loved animals, but one that has an interesting history from which I think we can learn a fundamental lesson about problem solving. While Australia is famous for its many wonderful native animals, in particular the kangaroo and the koala, it also has some less attractive animals, many of which were actually brought to Australia in the 19th and 20th centuries. First, perhaps the most well-known introduced animal is the rabbit, brought originally by the early settlers as a source of food. Another animal to be introduced by the settlers was the fox, and this was for the purpose of sport in the form of fox hunting. But perhaps the most unusual animal ever brought here was the cane toad. Here is a picture of one. It's a large, and some people would say very ugly species of toad, and was deliberately imported to this country by the sugarcane farmers in 1935 in an attempt to eradicate the beetle which destroys the sugarcane plant. So, how does the beetle do this? Well, it lives in the cane and drops its eggs onto the ground around the base of the plant. The eggs develop into grubs, and then they eat the cane roots. This, as you would expect, is far from good for the plant, and the result is, of course, that within a short period of time, the plant dies. The problems all happened because in the mid-30s, there was a serious outbreak of cane beetle, and the farmers became desperate to get rid of the pest which was ruining their livelihood. About this time, news was trickling in from overseas about a toad, which supposedly ate the beetles which killed the cane. It was reported that this cane toad, which was native to Central America, had been taken to Hawaii, where cane is also grown, and introduced with apparent success. So, with the backing of the Queensland authorities, the farmers arranged to import 100 toads from Hawaii. The toads were then released into the cane fields to undertake the eradication of the cane beetle. As predicted, the toads started to breed successfully, and within a very short time their numbers had swollen. But there was one serious problem. It turned out that cane toads do not eat cane beetles. And the reason for this is that toads live on insects that are found on the ground, and the cane beetles live at the top of the cane plant, well out of reach of the toads. In fact, they never come into contact with each other. Now, you may well ask, how did this terrible mistake ever happen? And the reason is quite simply that the farmers were desperate to find a way of ridding their fields of the cane beetle, and so they accepted the reports that had been written, without ever doing their own research. Meanwhile, much of tropical northeast Australia is infested with the cane toad, which serves no purpose whatsoever, and experts claim that the toad is spreading south in plague proportions. The added irony is that in 1947, just 12 years later, an effective pesticide was developed which actually kills the beetle, thereby ensuring the survival of the sugarcane industry to this day. Now, as agricultural scientists, we have to ask ourselves, what lessons are to be learned from this tale? And I can think of three main points. Firstly, one should never rely on claims which are not backed up by evidence, i.e., in this case, evidence that the cane toad actually eats the grub of the cane beetle and thereby kills the pest. Secondly, we should look very carefully at possible effects of introducing any living species into a new environment. And lastly, one should not allow one's decision-making to be influenced by a sense of desperation, which may cloud the issue. In other words, one should always seek objective advice.
That is the end of part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Okay, part 1 is done. I guess अब हो गया होगा clear. It was very very understandable this time, है ना? So जो भी आंसर्स हैं keep it to yourself. अभी अपने पास रख लो. Later on you can at least tell me in the comment section या जो which you are thinking कि हाँ go on with the flow you can write. ठीक है? It's all up to you. But I'll be needing proper answers. कि part 1 question number 1 to 10 what are the answers? Part 2 11 to 20 what are the answers? 3 and 4 so on. क्योंकि I won't be able to look at the answers right now क्योंकि मुझे समझ में नहीं आएगा 7 8 10 and so on. So it's better कैसे करेंगे? आराम से मुझे आंसर्स बाद में देना. पहले सुन लो, क्वेश्चंस खुद अटेम्प्ट कर लो, राइट डाउन योर आंसर्स इन योर लाइक शीट और पेपर पेन जहाँ पे भी लिख रहे हो नोटबुक में वहाँ लिख लो. ठीक है? सो विल मूव टू द पार्ट 2. चेक योर आंसर्स. टाइम मिला है अभी. टेक दैट एडवांटेज एंड विल मूव फॉरवर्ड.
Now turns to part 2.
Part 2. You will hear a woman talking about health and safety when using a computer. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 17.
The question 11 12 and this is 13 14 15 16 and 17. ठीक है? एक बार रीड कर लो. Go through with it.
Now, listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 17.
Hello everyone and welcome to the second session on health and safety. And today we're focusing on health and safety when using a computer. Now, can you all gather round this workstation here? That's great, thanks. Okay now, let's look at some equipment that is specifically designed for safe computer use. Firstly, take a look at this item here. Yes, the sloped slab in front of the keyboard. Does anyone know what it is? That's right, it's a wrist rest. And it does a lot more than take up room on your desk, I can tell you. Well, what does it do exactly? In actual fact, it's specifically designed to support your wrist when you're typing or when you're using a computer mouse. Now, the one I'm holding in my hand is made of foam rubber. Come on now, have a feel. You know you want to. Now, it's very flexible, isn't it? The padding is firm, but it also gives way when you press it, just like this. Here's another type, by the way. This one is filled with gel. Now, like the foam rubber type, it's got a firm surface, but when you press it like this, it gives way with a little spring. However, not all wrist rests are flexible like that. Some are made from hard plastic. That doesn't sound like a comfortable support for your wrist, does it? So, not to be recommended. Okay, so we know what kind of material we're looking for in a wrist rest. But what else do we have to think about before we choose one? Now, look again at the foam rubber wrist rest here. You can see that the slope of the wrist rest and the height and the width too match the front edge of the keyboard here. And there are no sharp edges. Look, it's really nice and smooth. Now, we know it's a busy time for you all at the moment. You're busy with assignments in between the hours you're spending browsing the net and going on social networking sites. Well, just think about how hard your wrist has to work. So, using a wrist rest like this one can really help in a number of ways. First of all, it helps you keep your wrist straight when you're using your computer. I'm demonstrating this now. As you can see, my wrist is neutral and straight rather than bent up and down. See what I mean? Now, it can also provide padding for your hands. It works in much the same way as a cushion, so it makes your desk much more comfortable. Now, please note, I did say cushion rather than pillow. We don't want you students to be too comfortable. Another advantage of a wrist rest is that it stops your hands from dropping off the edge of the keyboard. A wrist rest can also relieve tension and soreness in your neck and shoulders. And how does it do that exactly? Well, it removes the weight of your arm from your shoulders and neck altogether. So there are a lot of benefits, aren't there? However, most people never learn how to use a wrist rest correctly. In fact, leaning your wrists on a wrist rest for long periods can put a lot of pressure on the undersides of your wrists, just here. Now you have some time to look at questions 18 to 20. Now listen to and answer questions 18 to 20. So, to make the most of your wrist rest, it's really important to follow a few basic tips. First of all, make sure you place your wrist rest approximately 1.5 inches away from your keyboard, like this. And never ever place your wrists directly on your wrist rest. Instead, place the palm or ball of your hand on the rest. And another thing, don't use the wrist rest all the time, particularly when you're typing. Instead, your hands should be on the wrist rests during break periods, So between your typing sessions. This will avoid you putting strain on your wrists and fingers. Now, does anyone have any questions before we move on to computer glasses?
That is the end of part 2.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Okay, so that was the end of part 2. Question 20 हो चुके हैं, like 1 से लेके 20 तक we have done, right? आराम से अपने क्वेश्चंस चेक करो, जो जो आंसर्स खुद आप लोगों ने लिखे हैं, ठीक है? एंड देन विल मूव टू द नेक्स्ट पार्ट. और प्रॉपर आंसर्स विल बी सबमिटेड इन फॉर्म. आई नो गगन और बाकी सब लोग मुझे फॉर्म में सबमिट कर ही देंगे आंसर्स. आई एम वेल अवेयर. और बाकी जिनको नहीं पता है, दे कैन ऑल्सो राइट द आंसर्स इन द कॉमेंट सेक्शन एज वेल एट द एंड, ठीक है? दैट डिपेंड्स ऑन यू.
Now turns to part 3.
Part 3. You will hear 3 students discussing the issue of waste deposited in space.
First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26.
So question number 21 to 23 here and 24 to 26 are here, ठीक है? I'll be moving accordingly. जिस हिसाब से भी हमें ऑडियो सुनाई देंगी. एक बार रीड कर लो क्वेश्चंस के इंस्ट्रक्शंस एंड एवरीथिंग, ओके?
Now listen and answer questions 21 to 26.
Hey, did you manage to go to the talk by Dr. Chadwick this morning, Andy?
I was there. What happened to you, Sam?
My bike had a puncture. Seriously. Anyway, Ruth, I bet you took some notes. Can you fill me in?
Sure. It was all about space junk. Really interesting, actually. I mean, I knew about how much rubbish humans are dumping here on planet Earth, but I had no idea how much junk there is flying around in space. Did you know that there are literally millions of pieces of rubbish orbiting the Earth as we speak?
Not until now, I didn't.
They reckon that around 100 tons of very small objects, like mainly dust, drops on Earth every single day.
Yes, that's what she said.
I thought space junk was all man-made. I can't believe they know so accurately how much is actually out there. Do they track and monitor it all the time?
Yeah, they do. According to the talk, there are nearly 25,000 objects larger than 10 centimetres in diameter now orbiting the Earth.
And what does all this space junk consist of? Isn't it all discarded parts of rockets that were either broken or left behind after space missions, like Apollo and all those spacecraft from years ago?
Well, yes, but not only that. All other kinds of debris that we've dumped in space too. Anything from dead satellites to loose metal screws. There are even tiny particles of paint and liquid coolant.
So who is to blame for depositing all this rubbish? Where does it come from?
Well, I knew you were going to ask me that, Sam. So, hang on. You can take some of my notes if you like.
Thanks a lot. That's really helpful.
Here, look. Over a third, 37% to be exact, comes from Russia. But other countries are close behind. Another third, well, just under actually, 29% is from America, and then 28% is from China.
Yes, but other countries, like India, are adding to the rubbish pile. And don't forget the European Space Agency also has spacecraft in orbit.
That's true. We're talking serious space junk here.
Pretty serious, I'd say. So come on, what do you think are the chances of something solid dropping from space onto our heads?
Good question. Everyone asked that. Dr. Chadwick said at least one piece of junk falls to Earth every single day. But look at it this way. Earth is a pretty big place, so actually the statistical chances of being hit 7 to fall to Earth because the object's orbit.
To 30.
So are you saying I'm more likely to win the lottery?
Well, just think about it. 2/3 of the Earth is ocean.
That's true. But in time, almost all these pieces of rubbish will fall to Earth because the
Okay, question number 27 से 30 के लिए you have this and this part. I know ऊपर नीचे है थोड़ा सा, हमें एक काम करो, just write down from A to H on your paper. लिख लो एक बार ताकि तुम्हें याद रहे कि ए से लेके एच तक क्या ऑप्शंस थे. देन यू हैव टू पुट दोज ऑप्शंस इन क्वेश्चन नंबर लाइक इन ऑप्शंस 27 से लेके 30 तक. ठीक है. सो देयर आर अ लॉट ऑफ ऑप्शंस बट सब सही नहीं है, उनमें से चूज करके 4 हमें यहाँ भरने हैं. ठीक है. सो माई सजेशन इज टू राइट डाउन दी ऑप्शंस फ्रॉम ए टू एच एंड देन विल लिसन टू दी ऑडियो. ठीक है. नोट डाउन कर लो पहले आराम से एंड देन विल मूव फॉरवर्ड. ठीक है. I'm not rushing. I'm just giving you time, guys, so that you can write down from A to H, ताकि उसके बाद में तुम्हें दिक्कत ना हो. Please write down. Then we'll move forward to question number 27 to 30. Okay? Gagan, Monica, Sukhi, Sonia, DJ. जो भी यहाँ पे बच्चे हो वो लोग नोट डाउन कर लो एक बार. इफ यू हैव टाइम यू कैन क्विकली नोट इट डाउन, टेक अ स्क्रीनशॉट, टेक अ फोटो, व्हाटएवर यू आर थिंक इट इज गुड. सो आई होप इट इज बीइंग नोटेड डाउन. ज़्यादा नहीं है तो नेक्स्ट पे चल लेते हैं आराम से. नोट डाउन कर लिया सबने? एक बार प्लीज मुझे बता दो, लाइक फ्रॉम ए टू एच ऑप्शंस यू गाइज हैव नोटेड इट डाउन. नोट डाउन कर लिया सबने? प्लीज मुझे बता दो. ओके, आई होप सो कर लिया होगा. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन पे चलते, मतलब लाइक आई एम गोइंग टू प्ले द ऑडियो एंड दिस इज वेयर यू हैव टू पुट डाउन द आंसर्स. ओके.
7 to 30.
So are you saying I'm more likely to win the lottery?
Well, just think about it. 2/3 of the Earth is ocean.
That's true. But in time, almost all these pieces of rubbish will fall to Earth because the object's orbit is decreased by its gravitational pull. But the good news is that they don't cause any serious damage. You know, they can't actually survive the heat generated on re-entry. They simply burn away.
But that's not always the case. There are exceptions. Chunks of the United States UARS satellite recently fell into the Pacific Ocean.
The UARS satellite?
It was this 6-ton satellite launched by the Space Shuttle Discovery way back in 1991. So it had been up in space for 20 years, but stopped working in 2005. It weighed 5,700 kilos.
And that's about the same as a double-decker bus, apparently.
And, just check my notes, here it is, yes. The largest of these great big chunks that fell into the sea weighed about 158 kilograms. Think of the weight of an adult gorilla, Sam, and you get the picture.
A nice soft landing then.
Dr. Chadwick said, imagine a couple of washing machines tied together and travelling at 100 miles per hour and you'll get an idea. Oh, and do you remember Skylab? That was another US space station, and it fell to Earth at least 3 decades ago, in 1979. It fell into the Indian Ocean and the deserts of Western Australia.
According to what I wrote down, that particular space junk weighed 100 tons. And let's not forget Mir, the Russian space station. Mir weighed 135 tons, far, far larger than UARS, and it fell to Earth in 2001. It plunged straight into the South Pacific.
All very interesting. Listen, I've got some junk of my own to sort out. My bike. That's the second puncture this week.
Come on, I'll help you fix it.
That is the end of part 3.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Okay. So, beta, Gagan, मैंने जो options बोले थे ना, A, B, C, these options, you were supposed to write in your notebook. So that in options में से you can choose the correct answer that will go into the question number 27, 28, 29 and 30. Okay, I hope सबके हो गए हैं, सबके complete हो गए up till question 30. You guys have done, yes or no? तो चलो, we'll move to the part 4. Right? अभी अपने answers check कर लो up till question number 30. Check your answers, write it down on a paper, and then we'll move forward. ठीक है? I'm just playing the audio so that the time will pass. Okay?
Now turns to part 4.
Part 4. You will hear a man talking about tourism and the environment. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40.
So these are question number 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, and then 37 to 40. Okay? First, read from here to here, and then आराम से पहले read कर लो, ठीक है? I'm giving you time to read because I know questions should be supposed on one page, but यहाँ पे इतना space नहीं था, so I put the questions like on different pages. So आराम से read करो with question number 31 से 33 तक. Then I'll take you to question number 34 to 36. ये read कर लो. And then 37 से 40 because time is only 7 minutes are left. So इतने ऑडियो भी प्ले होगी, टाइम भी लगेगा, सो प्लीज जल्दी जल्दी रीड करो. एंड दिस इज द लास्ट वन. ओके, जल्दी से रीड कर लेंगे. Chalo, I'm going to play the audio now.
Listen carefully to the talk and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good morning, everyone. Let's make a start. Now, over the last few weeks, we've looked at some key areas in the travel and tourism module. We've already charted the origins and development of tourism, and we've also looked at the negative effects of tourism on both local communities and the environment. So, in this lecture, we're going to focus on ways in which tourists can actually benefit local people and natural areas if they travel responsibly. And this kind of travel is known as ecotourism. Now, there's no one definition of ecotourism. In fact, it can be interpreted in a number of different ways. This means it represents different things to different people. And sometimes people misunderstand ecotourism altogether. They think of it as just spending time in nature or natural areas. However, the truth is far more complex. In essence, it aims to minimize the negative impacts of tourism that we looked at earlier on in the course. Problems such as litter and water pollution, crime and so on, and at the same time to encourage travellers to have a positive impact on the places they visit. Now, there are many other words to describe a similar idea to ecotourism. In fact, the terms alternative tourism, sustainable tourism, or responsible tourism are often used to mean the same thing. But in fact, although the main ideas behind them are similar, there are small differences. And let's briefly look at these now. Alternative tourism is any kind of tourism that is not mass tourism. And by mass tourism, we mean hundreds, if not thousands, of people going on, for example, their 2 weeks a year beach holidays or traditional sightseeing tours. Alternative tourism includes travel such as backpacking and adventure holidays. And the term alternative also includes ecotourism, which is what we are mainly focusing on today. Now, what about sustainable tourism? Sustainable tourism has the same ideals as ecotourism, but it isn't limited to natural areas. So, you can have a sustainable tourist experience in a city or a town. And then we have responsible tourism. What does that mean exactly? Now, basically, this involves acting responsibly and respectfully as a guest when we travel overseas. And what do we mean by respectful? Well, being respectful might involve asking permission to take photographs, or go into someone's home observing some of the customs of the local community, such as dress or making an effort to learn the language. Now, ecotourism can be passive or active. So, what do we mean by passive tourism? Well, let's think of some specific examples. A passive tourist might buy their holiday package from a company that donate part of their profits to local charities. Or a passive tourist might book environmentally friendly accommodation. This means choosing to stay in a hotel which may use solar power as a source of energy, or changes sheets and towels for their guests less frequently. Now, active ecotourism's a way for people to enjoy everything that nature has to offer, and at the same time enable them to leave a positive mark on the environment. Now, this kind of ecotourist is sometimes referred to as a voluntourist. That's a combination of volunteer and tourist. You get the idea. Now, voluntourists prefer to experience a new place in an active way. And this doesn't mean sitting in a tourist bus or listening to a pre-recorded guide. Basically, they want to physically connect with the place they're visiting. And this includes connecting with humans and animals. Now, their approach to travel can make a real difference and can really benefit the places and the communities they choose to visit. Voluntourists often help local people construct and repair buildings, or it could mean being willing to help a community with nature conservation. So let's think of some specific examples of this kind of work in action. Now, voluntourists have helped local communities to plant hundreds of trees and installed identifying signs in the rainforests of Costa Rica. They've also helped with sustainable food production in Cuba, and in Jamaica, they've been involved in the cleaning up of local rivers. And in Thailand, they've worked on building ecologically sustainable reforested habitats. Now, some of the work that voluntourists do also involves looking after endangered animals, like the Giant Panda Project in Japan, or the Animal Sanctuary Project in Ecuador. Now, this work doesn't just involve interacting with wildlife, but involves educating local people about the need to protect wildlife. Now, before we explore wildlife tourism in more detail, does anyone have any questions?
That is the end of part 4.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Okay, so that is all. Question number 1 से लेके 40 you guys have done, right? So first and foremost thing, questions को अपना जो आपने आंसर किए हैं, go through with at once. एक बार देखना कि what are the answers that you have given and how to answer me. You guys all are aware. जिनको नहीं पता है, I'm just telling you, there is a form, ठीक है, जिसमें IELTS रिस्पॉन्स फॉर्म है, उसमें जाना एंड यू नो हाउ टू फिल इट. आंसर्स अपना क्वेरी वाले पार्ट में जस्ट राइट योर आंसर्स विथ 1 2 3 नंबरिंग सो ऑन. 1 से लेके 40 तक नंबर्स डालना एंड राइट योर आंसर्स. ओके, सो इट इज़ 51. दैट इज़ ऑल फॉर टुडे. थैंक यू फॉर कनेक्टिंग गाइज. अब क्लासेस रेगुलर होंगी एंड अगेन आई विल बी टेलिंग यू अबाउट द स्पीकिंग एंड द मीट एज वेल. So please be active on your mails. ठीक है? So bye bye, take care and have a great day. We'll meet tomorrow at again 3 p.m. and 5 p.m.